Larry, here we are. Welcome to our first YouTube channel video on, we're going to be covering the common questions that people might get during a technical interview when they're trying to get into cybersecurity. And we want to first welcome everyone who came over from our podcast, the Cybersecurity 101 with Joe and Larry. So this is really a transition, right, Larry? So if you want to maybe talk about why we're transitioning, and we'll get into it.
So yeah, we felt that we want to get into a little bit more hands-on. So a bunch of our viewers, especially people new to the IT world like myself, or is going to school like myself, that they would, the biggest thing when you get on the jobs, it's not your knowledge, it's the hands-on. So we want to kind of get more into the hands-on part of it and do some demonstrations.
Yeah, perfect. So what were some of the questions that you got asked in that last interview?
So my last interview, they asked me, one of the questions was onboarding. How do you onboard someone? So that was one of the questions. The second question was, how do you create access, remote access to the computer?
Okay.
Yeah, and then the last one was offboarding.
Okay, cool.
How would you offboard someone? So those are the ones I think we'll go over today.
So yes, we're going to cover those. But what's really cool is I'm going to show you how to create your own environment so that way you can actually get as much practice onboarding and offboarding. So the next time someone asks you about, creating users or Active Directory and those sorts of things, you can say, I actually have done it. I built my own lab and everything, and I'm just looking for an opportunity to help you and your organization. And you could describe how you built a lab and that gave you some hands-on experience. So that's always the next best thing, right? Is someone who took the initiative to do it. So I'm going to actually walk you through this, and
I look so forward to it.
Yeah. So step one is you would sign into portal.azure.com, and in here, Larry, you'll notice that there's an option for virtual machines. And if you don't see it show up right away, you can just start typing in, virtual machines, and that'll take you there as well. And then up here in the top left, you'll say create an Azure virtual machine.
Got it.
And we're going to fill out some information about it. We're going to create a new resource group to hold the virtual machine. We'll call this the the YouTube channel, and this one does not want spaces. So no spaces in it. We'll click OK. And then we need to give it a name, right? So this will be called, episode 1. And what is the location we want to create it in? We can create it in Europe, like Sweden. That's pretty cool.
Oh, wow.
Actually, it might be kind of fun. Why don't we create a virtual machine in Sweden, right?
Oh, that'd be awesome.
All right. And then
Swedes love it.
Right. The next most important thing is we need to change the operating system. Instead of, I know how much you love Linux, and they do offer a bunch of Linux here, but we're going to go ahead and choose Windows Server. And I'll just go ahead and choose the latest, Windows Server 2022 Data Center Edition.
Oh, wow.
The very latest, copy. And for some reason, it didn't take that. Let me see if it takes 2019. Yeah, it took 2019. So there must be a problem with the 2022. So we'll go with the next highest. We'll go with the 2019 here.
2019.
And then the next thing is it wants to know how much power does this thing need, right? And you'll notice that the more power, the more expensive it is, right? So For a lab environment, something like this is totally fine. If you were running it in production, you'd probably run it, a little bit faster, depending on how many users there were, but we'll just go with that size. The next thing we need to do is come up with a unique username and password. They don't let you do something like generic, like admin or administrator. Those are kind of guessable. So we'll do like, ADM, which is kind of short for admin, and then YouTube. And then we have to come up with something, somewhat unique. So I'll come up with something, right now, just kind of fun, and then I'll text it to you later.
All right, awesome.
Okay, now the next thing is, this is just a lab for, just messing around. It's not production. So we can just go with the standard default here, which allows us to remote into this lab environment using remote desktop. Now, because you've been studying certified ethical hacking, that just opening up ports from the internet directly to your servers is not a very good idea. So normally you would set that, if this was like a production environment, you would set this to none. You would not allow, things to connect to it. But for us, just so that, just for our lab, we're just kind of, testing. We'll go ahead and open up this. This is what allows us to remotely connect to it, right?
Oh, yeah. RDP.
Yeah, RDP. So the remote desktop protocol, TCP 3389. And then we'll go ahead and go here to disks. It's basically saying, should we go with like the expensive fast disks or the slower disks that are less expensive? So we'll go with the fast disks for our lab. What kind of encryption? We'll just kind of go with the defaults here. We'll go next to the networking page. Okay, it's going to create a new virtual network. So you've studied TCP/IP and IP networking, right? And
yep.
And so this is basically a subnet, and we're going to go with the default 10.0.0.0. It's a class C subnet, and it's going to assign a public IP address to it.
Okay.
Some of these principles and concepts are probably new because it's unique to Azure. So people that have not, done this, will probably have a lot more questions than this. But I'm going to just kind of go a little quick here, just so we can get into the main thing, which is creating an Active Directory domain controller. And then we'll go ahead and do advanced, and we'll just go to create. So this virtual machine, when it's not being used, it'll shut down at 7 o'clock every night. And then it'll be about 8 cents an hour when it's used. So it's not very expensive, right?
No.
And this particular subscription gives me, I think, $150 a month credit. So I'm actually not paying for it. It's that makes it nice for these kind of lab demos, right?
Makes it awesome for them.
Okay. So that's going to take a minute. Now, the reason why we're creating a virtual machine to host Active Directory, again, is so that you can actually have your own Active Directory environment to create users and groups and, onboarding and offboarding, get some hands-on experience. So in a real world environment, if you're working at a company, they might actually have their Active Directory running in Azure. It's quite possible. They might have it running in Amazon, or they might have it in a traditional data center, or even, in some closet, somewhere at their headquarters. That's happened too, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of organizations do have Active Directory. I'd probably venture to say that if if you were interviewing today, there's a pretty good chance, they're going to want you to have a little bit of Active Directory, experience. Now, there's some companies that are born in the cloud, which means they use software as a service like Office 365, and therefore they don't really need Active Directory on premise. They don't have traditional data centers. They're just using cloud software.
Right.
If you end up working for one of those companies, when they ask you the question, how would you onboard a user, your experience with on-premise Active Directory is actually not relevant anymore.
Wow.
They don't need you to know that because they don't use that. Now, what they might use is they might use Azure Active Directory. So that's kind of the cloud version.
Oh, okay.
That.
So eventually, I think most companies, well, they should be upgraded. I mean, you still got companies running, Windows 2007.
Oh yeah. Oh
but
yeah.
Eventually, if a company is really trying to keep up to date, they will be using Microsoft Azure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's correct. And it's going to take people time to get there, and there very well could be some organizations that have legitimate reasons why they might not be able to use the cloud for whatever reason. Like maybe poor internet connection, speeds or whatever it is, right? Like you're in the Amazon rainforest and you don't yet have Elon's like Starlink internet or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so check this out. So it says that it's kind of funny. It says that the virtual machine is not yet ready to troubleshoot the issue, but here it does say that it is running.
Oh,
and
wow.
so it gives us the public IP address here.
Okay, I see it.
With this IP, I can say copy to clipboard, right?
Yep.
And so now that it's in my clipboard, I can run a program called remote desktop connection. So remote desktop connection, it's built into every Windows computer. It's installed by default.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you were to click on your start menu and you start typing like remote desktop, this should appear, and you should be able to actually type in that IP.
Oh, wow.
And then when I click connect here, do we remember what the username was?
Oh my gosh.
All right, I think I'm gonna go ahead and take a guess. ADM YouTube.
Yep.
And sometimes you actually have to put in the name of the server in front. So for example, the name of the server is, what was it, episode 1?
Yep.
Okay, so I got lucky. It was ADM YouTube. Okay, it asked about a certificate. I'm gonna say, don't ask me again. I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
And then, so what happens is now I am connected to a server running in Sweden.
Wow.
Now, how do we know it's in Sweden? Like, do we just take their word for it?
No, can we actually check the IP address?
That's right. So we're gonna actually launch this web browser here. And one of the first things, one of the first things we'll probably do is download the new Chromium Edge, because this is this Internet Explorer is actually no longer supported by Microsoft. They're end of lifing this thing here. So we'll just do a quick download here of go to Bing, and then we'll say I guess we'll see how probably have to turn something off here. So let me go over to this local server. So over here, this Internet Explorer enhanced mode, I'm just going to turn that off really quick just so I can go in and download the new Edge so I don't get all these pop-ups and stuff. Like normally when you're on a server, you're not really wanting people to install software. So the fact that it's kind of locked down like that is actually a pretty good thing. Like you don't want people really kind of doing this kind of stuff, right? In a normal environment, you would really push out the software. You wouldn't have people go and browse to websites and download it. So we'll do Microsoft Edge browser download. See, this is kind of one of the reasons why you want to go with the very latest, Windows Server. It's so that you don't have to do things like this, to get it just usable, to download the latest thing. Try that again. All right, that failed. All right, we're just going to move on without the browser. We're going to go to we're going to go up here to manage, and we're going to go to add roles and features.
Right.
And then we're going to add the we're just going to kind of go next here. And we're going to add this Active Directory domain services.
Yep. And then
so just that checkbox right there, that is going to make this thing become a domain controller. Now,
okay.
The very first domain controller you install also needs DNS. It's just it's like a prerequisite, feature.
Yeah.
So we're going to install that as well. And let's just see if there's anything else we want or need here. I don't think so. So we're going to go next. And then restart if needed. Yeah, that's fine. And yeah, and install. Okay, good. Okay. So we literally just, in a few mouse clicks, we installed a domain controller. Now it's running through the install. It's probably going to ask us a couple of questions like, what is the domain? What is the DNS name? So we get a architect here and design our Active Directory environment. But once this thing's up and running, you'll be able to create users, right? And then if you create another machine, that machine can then log into this Active Directory network. People can VPN into it as if they were a remote user, right? The other kind of fun thing for you is you can create a virtual machine on that same subnet, that 10 network, and actually start trying to hack it.
That's
this is a default config that's not even patched, so it's highly hackable at this point. Okay. So you can test your your scripts and tools and everything, right?
Yep.
All right.
So part of the onboarding process is just going into Active Directory, and then creating them as a user, and then then you give them what permissions that they should have, right?
Right. Yes. Well, as soon as this is done installing, I'll show you how to do that. Configuration required. So installation succeeded. Okay. So now see this little yellow flag up here? It's saying that the install completed, but we need to do some configuration. So we can now promote this server to a domain controller. Right. We're going to add a new forest because we don't have a pre-existing one. We're creating a new one. So this one we'll call like youtube.com. We can call our Active Directory forest anything. Now, in the real world, you wouldn't want to use an actual like domain name that you don't own for a lot of reasons, but just for fun, because we're doing a YouTube channel and everything, we're just gonna call our Active Directory youtube.com. That's just kind of fun, right? And then we're just going to kind of go with the defaults here, and I'll just type in a password in case everything got destroyed and you had to do a special recovery mode. You just need a password.
Right.
This NetBIOS domain name is really for backwards compatibility with like really, really old systems. I mean, we're talking Windows NT here, which was 1998, 1999. So really, really old backwards compatibility stuff here with NetBIOS.
Okay.
So we'll just go with that. And then this is the location on the hard disk where Active Directory is going to store its information. So we'll just go with the defaults there.
So Joe, you know what the funny thing is? I know some of this already because we did learn it in school.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the practice of actually doing it all the time. This is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you have your own Azure subscription, you can create your own VMs. You could use Amazon, you could use Google. There's other. It doesn't have to be Microsoft. There's other locations that allow you to create virtual machines. You could even create virtual machines on your own computer. So you can use like Oracle VirtualBox or Hyper-V.
Yep.
Different sort of. Yeah.
I've used Oracle. I have it on my computer now, and I have used Hyper-V.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, really, you could create your own Active Directory domain controllers following the steps I just showed you. You just basically install the Windows Server operating system. And once that's installed, then you could go, to the, add roles and then, choose Active Directory domain services and then just kind of follow through the steps like I was showing. And then pretty soon here, this thing will reboot and then we'll have our own domain controller for us to actually add accounts in.
Sweet.
Now, while this is running, what if you were working for a company that was kind of born in the cloud and they didn't have Active Directory? How would we actually create accounts?
Well, wouldn't everything be created mainly through the cloud?
Exactly. So what I want to do is I want to show you how that would actually, work. So we're going to sign in here, and I'll give you these credentials so you can mess around in this environment as well.
Okay.
Sign in with an account. And so on this left, when we went to the portal.office.com, on this left navigation, because we're an administrator, instead of just going to like Outlook or Word, we're going to go to the administrator panel. And this is where we can actually create user accounts. And, right here, user management, add, edit, remove. So this is onboarding, and then this is offboarding, right? So if I add a user, I need to create a user.
Right.
And then I'll have it create a password. And then I'm going to require that user to have to change their password when they first sign in.
Okay.
Send the password upon completion as well.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually email you the password for this new account so you can actually sign in, to it.
This is insane. What's the funny part, Joe, is we learn all this stuff in school, but when you actually don't do it all the time, I just feel so, and I guarantee some of the users just feel like, oh gosh, I know this. But it's fun.
So if you're creating a user, just a normal user, you'd
Yeah.
probably, you'd probably come in here and give them the appropriate, license, whether it's Office E3, whatever it is, right?
Right.
That's going to give them email and access to things. Now, the other question is, do you want to give them any administrative permission? Now, in your case, I want to give you administrative permission because I want you to be able to create users. So I'm going to
Right.
give you user administrator permission. That's enough for you to be able to create onboard and offboard users.
Right.
And then I say finish. Okay, cool. And then there's your temporary password that was just emailed to you. So if you check your email address, it's going to give you, this is the username, and then this is the password. And then you should be able to sign in to portal.office.com with the email address that was just sent to your Hotmail account. And then I will have you share your screen and I will watch you create a user. While you're waiting for that, why don't I take you back to Active Directory?
All right.
Our domain controller has finished rebooting. And so we're now logging into the server for the first time after we promoted it to become a domain controller. So Larry, after you go to manage and you add the Active Directory domain role,
Yeah.
then on the tools menu, you're going to have a new option here for Active Directory users and computers.
Oh, okay.
So if someone ever asks you, what is the tool that's used to onboard or offboard, it's going to be this ADUC tool, Active Directory users and computers. Now, if you want to get really fancy, you can go to like the run command and you could do like dsa.msc.
Okay.
And that will also launch Active Directory users and computers. Either way, we'll launch this tool. Now, if you were a help desk user or someone who's responsible for onboarding and offboarding users, you're going to be spending most of your time here, right? So here's the user account that we're signed into now. It's ADM YouTube. It's this account that we literally just created, a short while ago.
Wow.
If you wanted to create a new employee, you can go new user and you could say, okay, I'm going to create Tom Brady, and I'll make his life easy. I don't want him to have to type in T Brady or some weird. I'll just give him the username Tom.
Right.
The next thing is, what kind of password do I want to give Tom? Now, we don't want to give him weak passwords like password 123, and we don't want to give him something guessable like Patriots are the best, Cowboys suck. That's like a guess. Right? Like that's just what Patriot fans would do. That's what they would guess, right?
Yeah, that's what they would guess.
But we're gonna come up with something different, right? Like baseball, the number 4, and then winter with a capital W, and then maybe exclamation point. Baseball, the number 4, winter with an exclamation point. Baseball 4 winter. Now, those two words combined with a number in the middle, right? And then that's a passphrase. It's harder to guess that. It's not in a dictionary, and a football person isn't really going to be thinking about baseball, right? No. So you're really kind of coming up with things that are not easily guessable. Now, this is also a really good idea. The user must change the password next login, because when I communicate this password to them, inherently the way I communicate with them is probably an insecure way. It's probably an email that someone down the road might be able to get. So I don't want to leave this unchecked, because then if someone got into Tom's email, he's going to know what his password is, right? So we want to make sure that Tom selects something unique, but we want to train him how to use a good password. Now, this password never expires is not a good idea.
So we You want to create it to where they have to redo it every 3 months? Isn't that usually what they do?
So this is actually a really interesting concept. Let's discuss it for a second. For the last 20 years, the consensus in security was that people should be changing their passwords periodically, like you said, once every 90 days.
Yep.
The issue that that NIST, which is the Department of Commerce for the United States, they have this National Institute of Standards and Technology, and they kind of set the standards for the government and try to lead the way. They basically said that when you require people to change their passwords that frequently, do you know what they do, Larry? They just add a number on the end, right? It's not really making it a much more secure thing. So the latest thinking in security is, believe it or not, is to set this to never expire, but with a couple of conditions here. You want to make that password really long.
Right.
Like 12 characters. That's going to force the person to use a phrase, right? And you want to require a second factor of authentication, like a
multi-factor.
Like the Microsoft.
Did you do like a fingerprint or?
Yeah, if you use Windows Hello for Business, you can definitely do like a fingerprint or a facial recognition or something like that. So Windows Hello for Business definitely supports those other factors, right? If you're signing into Azure, then you could actually use the Microsoft Authenticator app or a FIDO2 security key.
Right. So I have a question, and I know not to get off base.
But just real quick, if I click finish,
yeah,
that completes the onboarding. Okay, go ahead with your question.
So with facial recognition, is it hackable?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
That's insane.
Yeah.
How can you hack someone's face?
Well, what you do is you build like a paper mache model, and then you print out what looks like a face, and then you take that sort of thing that is like 3D and it has a picture that was printed out kind of on it, and you put it in front of the camera, and that's gonna pass most facial recognition tests.
Wow.
Yeah. So so we created Tom in Active Directory. You saw me do it, right? I right-clicked, I said new user.
Yeah.
I went through this wizard, right? So I gave him his name, his username, right? Pretty easy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I gave him a password. I made some decisions here, and that was basically it. I created the user. That's easy.
Right.
But what if there's some additional things that they want you to do? Notice after you create the user and you double click on it, notice there's some additional tabs up here.
Right.
So for example, you have this member of tab, which is the groups that Tom needs to be a member of. So maybe domain administrators, is not enough. Maybe there's actually a group that existed called, GOAT quarterbacks, right? And now Tom is like, hey, I'm the GOAT, right? So add me to that group. So now we type in GOAT, and he is now a member of GOAT, which is undeniable, right? I mean, some people say no. I mean, it's definitely Tom Brady. There's no doubt, right?
There's no doubt. I mean, I'm not a big Brady fan, but he's the GOAT.
He's the GOAT, right? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So now technically, if anyone at home caught this, they know that, you don't have more than one GOAT, so it's not plural. So it's the GOAT quarterback. So I'm going to change so it's not plural. You only have one. And it only contains, if we double click on this, there's only one person. It's only Tom Brady. Okay, cool. So Tom is now a member of this group. And that's a typical step that is done during account creation, right?
Right. I see some other things too if you want to create a remote access for them, it's all right up there. I see the tabs.
Yeah, if you want them to be able to, to be able to gain access, do we allow access? Now, these things here, these features are only really if you're using Microsoft as your VPN remote access solution, which some people do because it's free. It's built into Windows Server.
Right.
Other people are going to use like Cisco or Palo Alto or Fortinet or other kind of VPN solutions, Pulse Secure. There's a lot out there. But if you're using Microsoft as your VPN, then yes, you would actually either leave it default here, control the access through a policy, because then the policy can actually do things like grant people access if they're a member of a group called VPN users, right? So then maybe for that company, maybe they have a group called, VPN users, and not everyone is allowed to VPN in. But Tom, he's a VIP, right? So he's like, hey, I want to work from home. So, you're having an error connecting. Let me make sure you're a member of the VPN users group. Okay, now he's good to go because now he's a member of this group, right? So that would be this would be onboarding with Active Directory. Now, did you end up getting the email to Hotmail with the password?
Yes, I did. Okay. There we go. Then I'll show this again. Sorry.
Nice.
There we go.
All right.
Voila. Ta-da.
Okay, cool. Now I'm going to watch you onboard a user, and then I'm going to show you how to offboard a user with Office 365.
Okay. So not add a card. I'm going to add a user, right?
Yep.
Let's think of a name.
So,
Scott.
I think, I forgot an either. Per Scott.
Let's repress. Prescott. There we go. Display name Dex Prescott.
And you don't want to have to make them type in the whole thing, so maybe just DAC would be cool, right, for a username?
Sorry, I was down there.
Nice. Okay, cool. And then, DAC is like this VIP, and he tells you the password, he wants you to use. So Microsoft does allow you to type in a password if you don't want it to automatically create a password. So on that last screen, if you go back,
okay, yeah.
Big time VIP, you would uncheck that first checkbox at the bottom there. And that way you would specify the password instead of having it create one. So that's an option. Some executives, or whatever, they have this, password they want to use, right? So
all right, I create one for them. There we go.
And then do you want him to have to change it after he signs in, or do you want him to keep that?
No, so I want him to send a password in an email upon completion, right?
So maybe you just uncheck that because maybe you'll just verbally, call him on the phone or text it to him, right?
Right.
Yeah, there you go. Okay, cool. So those are kind of the scenarios that you might go through in the help desk role is, how am I going to get this password over to them? Do I want to make it super hard for them or not? Those sorts of things. And if the company's big enough, they'll have a policy, a pretty strict policy that auditors will come and verify if it's being done correctly, So, yeah. All right. So then we'll go next. And then, what kind of license do we want to give them? And if you scroll down a little bit, it looks like, is there any, it looks like there's an F3 license available. So we'll give them Office 365 F3. So F3 stands for Frontline Worker. And Frontline Worker does not get the full version of Office on their local computer, like Word, Excel, PowerPoint. They have to use the web edition. And so that's the big difference between the F and the E license.
Oh, okay.
There's more, there's plenty more to it than that, but that's probably one of the biggest differences between those two. All right, then we'll go next. And then next again. And then finish.
That's it?
That's it. So you've just onboarded Dak Prescott. And Dak, if you're watching this video and you need a personal help desk, I know Larry would love to be able to run IT for you and all of your businesses, sir. So just, Larry's available. Just hit him up slide into his DMs and let him know that, you know, you're looking for new IT help. Right.
Okay.
You never know, Larry, who could be watching this video. I mean, the NFL could be like, hey, let's go, right?
Wow, that was it. Okay, and then.
All right, so you've onboarded the user. How do we offboard a user? So on the far left, if you go to users.
Yeah.
On the far left navigation in the top left. And if you go and expand that and then click active users. Now, Dak, basically, he just called you and said, hey, thank you for creating my account. I just got traded to the Chargers. And you're like, screw that. I'm deleting you right now. I'm offboarding you right now, dude. That you just broke my heart.
Yeah.
So
the Chargers? Come on, Dak.
So up at the top, what option do you think you would choose if you wanted to remove him from the environment?
I'll probably just hit delete user.
There you go. Yep, and that's the offboard. So go ahead and do that. And it's basically, it's kind of cool. It's going to automatically do some things for you. You could give another user access to files, but if you're just done with it, yeah, you just go delete. Boom, that's offboarding.
Oh, wow.
So that's, you know, it frees up the license. And, you know, in a real world, what you'd probably do is you would have chosen that box to, here, let's go ahead and delete someone else. Go ahead and delete Alex on the top there, just so I could show you, just so you can get some practice here doing deletes. And then notice that bottom checkbox, give another user access to his OneDrive files. So that's probably a more realistic scenario because, you know, if he'd been working there for 20 years, Larry, and he's got all kinds of files in his OneDrive, you don't want to just have that be lost forever. You want to probably have someone else go in there and copy that out, right? So you'd probably do that bottom checkbox there.
Okay.
And then go ahead and type in Dak. We'll go ahead and give Dak access, or we deleted Dak, so we got to give maybe yeah, and Alan or whoever, yeah, some other user, Alan, access. Yeah. AN, sorry, ALLAN. There he is, Alan DeYoung. Yep. And then we go ahead and delete, and that's going to give Alan access to Alex's files.
Oh, wow.
There you go. That's so you've done the onboarding, you've done the offboarding. Now this is for a born in the cloud company that did not have Active Directory.
Oh, okay.
So now you need to get some repetition on the other scenario, which is where you can sign in to a virtual machine. All right, so this is
Tom Brady. Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, so this is Active Directory. Now this is where a lot of companies are going to have you onboard or offboard users right here. So go ahead and create the Dak Prescott account here, and then user. Yep. Nice.
Then I come up with a password form. And then we want him change password. Oh, and next, because I password never expires. I don't want that. Count is disabled. Don't want that. User cannot change password. Don't want that. Password will change login. Yes.
Very cool. And then just maybe after you hit finish here, just to maybe troll Tom Brady, why don't you add Dak into the GOAT group just to troll Tom here.
I can right click on it, right?
Yeah, it looks like right now you have two different users highlighted.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
I want to add to a group.
Yep.
We want to add him to, what is the GOAT? Do we have a space in between quarterback?
If you look in the screen there, you should see that GOAT group. It's like 10th from the bottom, right there in the middle.
Yep.
Now I'll teach you a trick here. You don't have to type the whole thing. You can just click check name on the right, and it will actually auto complete the rest of it.
Oh gosh.
Cool.
Oh wow.
All right. Now, if you double click on the GOAT quarterback group, let's see how many different members are in there. If you go to members on the top, see now Dak's in there.
Sweet.
Okay, now you've got this unfortunate position. The general manager came to you and said, okay, we can only keep one quarterback. You're going to have to pick which one to keep.
Keeping Dak.
All right, so you're going to have to offboard Tom now. So how do you offboard Tom?
First, do I remove him from this group first?
Now, you could, but why don't you delete him and then come back to the group and see if that automatically removed him from all of his groups? Because he's right now he's part of two different groups, right?
Right. So would I go to disable account?
Now, very good question. Depending on the company that you work for, some of them just want you to do a disable. Others might want you to do a delete. Most organizations are going to have you do a disable, and here's why. What if the person changes their mind and they want to come back and work for you? It's real easy to just re-enable that account.
Oh, okay.
And so that's typically what's done is that. Now, there's another reason to disable instead of delete. What if someone gave you the wrong name and now you just deleted the wrong person? You can't go, it's not easy to go and get them back, right? Whereas if you only disable them, now you can just go and re-enable that person very quickly, right?
Right.
What if somebody just goes on like maternity leave or paternity leave? You disable them for 90 days and whatever, and then you re-enable them.
Oh, okay. Oh.
All right, now, so yeah, go ahead and do the disable, and then you should notice that the picture will change after you click OK. If you look very, very carefully, go ahead and click OK here. Look very, very carefully at the pictures.
Yeah, his nut.
He has a little down arrow, right?
Yep.
So that's how you can tell that he's disabled, is that little down arrow.
Oh, wow.
Okay, cool. So you have access now to two different environments where you can onboard and offboard, both traditional on-premise Active Directory and the newer, more modern companies that are born in the cloud that have cloud only.
Oh, yeah. This was fun, Joe. Thanks, man. This was really fun.
You
For
got
anybody that's listening, it's not really that hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, cool. Well, yeah. And also, if you're listening, if you have any suggestions or questions for a future episode, please drop them in the comments and hit that subscribe button.
Yes, please subscribe so we can really have fun in doing this. And yeah, we may even interview some other people. So it'd be awesome.
All right, awesome. Cool. All right. I'll talk to you soon, Larry.
Talk to you, Joe.